Hello, my name is Jim Batson and I'm the owner of HCBlake Company. HCBlake Company is a long history in Huntsville, Alabama. It started with this old cat from Ireland came in the 1850s, and his name was B.W. Blake. And so B.W. Blake basically started our family in the trades. He ran all the water lines, the gas lines, all the different items that were around the square. B.W. Blake had two children. He had James Blake, Hall Blake. So James and Hall started Blake Brothers Plumbing. HCBlake was more of a tradesman. James was more of the businessman. So as it evolved, James decided that he was going to go to Memphis and open two large plumbing companies. But HCBlake stayed in Huntsville. And from early 1900s, late 1800, we were in the same spot. And so when HCBlake died, my grandfather took it over, but my grandfather had grown up with HCBlake. So he, as a 12-year-old, lived with HCBlake. And that's kind of, his wife had passed away, so it was the old plumber and the young kid. They lived across the street from where the office is on Holmes Avenue right now. So my grandfather took it over and he grew the business, and at one time he had about 500 people working for him. He worked 7 days a week. He had the same families, and the families worked for him, and they worked for him for years, but he was always fair. He helped everybody, and he was a city councilman from the early 30s all the way into the 1960s. And so he ran the business up until the 70s. And in the 1970s, my uncle, Hall Bryant II, who graduated in building science, came to work for him. Hall grew the business, got really instrumental in the growth of Huntsville in the 60s and 70s, and he was a city councilman in the 70s. And in the 80s, I started working for him when I was 12 years old. And my mother was working there, and I'll never forget it. She would drag me down there when I was 12, and I would work every summer, Christmas, Thanksgiving, every holiday there was. Later on, my uncle told me we just tried to run you off to see if I would last. But it was a very good experience for me because my work ethic was taught to me at that age. So I worked there from the time I was 12. And then when I graduated college, my uncle offered me a job and said, "We would love for you to come work." We worked good together, and I bought him out in 2009. Well, we changed the business quite a bit, and we grew the business. From the time of the early 1800s up until 2009, we were never plus or minus 15 to 20 people. Also, the reason why the company was lasted so long is nobody was ever given anything. I had to pay for the company, my uncle had to pay for the company, my grandfather, everybody had to pay for it. Because if you have to pay for something, you know how much it's worth. You know how hard you work. So in 2009, I told my uncle it was time for him to leave. Well, 2008 and 9 were the best times in history. 2010 is the worst time in history in Huntsville, Alabama. So when I bought the company was at a huge value, and the next year the company plummeted in half. That's when I really decided that I had to do something different with the company. I got on an airplane and started flying all over the world. I would sit down with the best people in the industry. I would listen to what they were good at. So I was able to pick out from the people all over the country the good positives and negatives of what they did, and basically decided to make some platforms of growing in service and construction to make sure that it wouldn't happen to me again. And today we're probably at about somewhere between 150 and 170 employees. We're about 50-50 construction to service. And the expertise is, we have people that graduated from college that didn't graduate from high school, and those people work together like they're a team. So our team effort that we've been able to grow here is what I'm really impressed with. And so what I really look forward to is what's going to happen in the next few years, where we have all these young people step up and we realize how they can step up and give them a career to where they can eat the fruit from the tree.